Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranams.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranams to you.
Hare Krishna dear devotees, Dandat Pranams to all. Welcome all of you to this morning program Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. We are very happy to have His Grace Prasannatma Balaram Prabhu, and he will enlighten us on Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, 12th chapter, and texts 11 and 12. Over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, and Dandat Pranams to all the devotees who are here. So we can get started. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Maham Vande Shri Guru Bidhinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So we'll be looking at two verses today. This is from the 5th canto, 12th chapter, and we'll be covering verses 11 and 12. So just go ahead and share. Just give me a minute. I hope you all are able to see. Is that okay now?
In between blank screen coming, Prabhuji.
Maybe it's taking some time.
Down bottom, some blank screen is there.
That's okay.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
So the audio is also okay, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, it's clear.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So 5, 12, 11. Jnanam vishuddham paramattam ekam anantaram tvabhahir brahma satyam pratyak prashantam bhagavat chabda samajnam yad vasudevam kavayo vadanti. So we will just see the translation for this particular verse. What then is the ultimate truth? The answer is that non-dual knowledge is the ultimate truth. It is devoid of the contamination of material qualities. It gives us liberation. It is the one without a second, all-pervading and beyond imagination. The first realization of that knowledge is Brahman. Then Paramatma, the Supersoul, is realized by the yogis who try to see him without grievance. This is the second stage of realization. Finally, full realization of the same supreme knowledge is realized in the Supreme Person. All learned scholars describe the Supreme Person as Vasudeva, the cause of Brahman, Paramatma, and others. So the purport by Srila Prabhupada. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said, Yat Advaitam Brahmopanishadi Tat Apiyasya Tanubha. The impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Supreme Truth consists of the bodily rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ya Atmantaryami Purusha iti so asyamsa vibhavaha. What is known as Atma and Antaryami, the Super Soul, is but an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sad Aishwaryaihi Purno Ya Iha Bhagavan Sa Swayam Ayam. What is described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, complete with all six opulences, is Vasudeva, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not different from him. Great learned scholars and philosophers accept this after many, many births. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabhaha. Bhagavad Gita 7.19. The wise man can understand that ultimately Vasudeva Krishna is the cause of Brahman and Paramatma, the Super Soul. Thus, Vasudeva is Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. The real Tattva, absolute truth, is Bhagavan, but due to incomplete realization of the absolute truth, people sometimes describe the same Vishnu as impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. That is Bhagavatam 1.2.11. From the very beginning, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Satyam Param Dhimahi. We meditate on the Supreme Truth. The Supreme Truth is explained here as Jnanam Vishuddham Satyam. The absolute truth is devoid of material contamination and is transcendental to the material qualities. It gives all spiritual success and liberation from this material world. That supreme absolute truth is Krishna, Vasudeva. There is no difference between Krishna's inner self and outward body. Krishna is Purna, the complete whole. There is no distinction between his body and soul as there is between ours. Sometimes, so-called scholars, not knowing the constitutional position of Krishna, mislead people by saying that the Krishna within is different from the Krishna without. When Krishna says, Man mana bhava mat bhakto, mat vyaji mam namaskuru, so-called scholars advise the reader that it is not the person Krishna to whom we must surrender, but the Krishna within. So-called scholars, Mayavadis, cannot understand Krishna with their poor fund of knowledge. One should therefore approach an authorized person to understand Krishna. The spiritual master has actually seen Krishna, therefore we can explain him properly. That is, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadhyakshante jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. That is Bhagavad Gita 4.34. Without approaching an authorized person, one cannot understand Krishna. For the sake of continuity, we'll just look at the next verse. Verse 12. Raghu gunaitat tapasana yati na chejyaya nirvapanad grahadva na chandasa naiva jhalagni suryaye vina mahat padarajo abhishekam. So the translation is like this. My dear King Rahugana, unless one has the opportunity to smear his entire body with the dust of the lotus feet of great devotees, one cannot realize the absolute truth. One cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing celibacy, that is brahmacharya, strictly following the rules and regulations of householder life, leaving home as a vanaprastha, accepting sannyasa, or undergoing severe penances in winter by keeping oneself submerged in water or surrounding oneself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. Purport again by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Actual knowledge of transcendental bliss can be bestowed upon anyone by a pure devotee. Vedeshu dhurlabam adhurlabam atma bhaktav. One cannot attain the perfection of spiritual life simply by following the directions of the Vedas. One has to approach a pure devotee. Anya abhilashitas shunyam jnana Jnana karmadi anavritam. By the grace of such a devotee, one can understand the absolute truth, Krishna, and one's relationship with him. A materialistic person sometimes thinks that simply by executing pious activities and remaining at home, one can understand absolute truth. That is denied in this verse. Nor can one understand absolute truth simply by observing the rules and regulations of brahmacharya celibacy. One only has to serve the pure devotee that will help one understand absolute truth without fail. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschayata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna once again to all the devotees here, seeking the blessings and the mercy of all the Vaishnavis who are present here. So kindly bless me so that I'll be able to do some justice to these wonderful verses that we are going to discuss today. And I'm doing this for the pleasure of the Lordships, as a seva to the Guru Parampara, and for my own purification. So actually, just a very quick background, like you all are aware, we are in the 12th chapter of the 5th canto. So the title of this particular chapter is the conversation between Maharaja Rahugana and Jadabharata. Now, actually, if you look at this conversation, this is going on for many chapters, right from, I think, chapter 10, 11, 12, 13. So it will go on even up to the 13th chapter, the next chapter also. So this is the conversation between the two great personalities is being discussed in detail. So now in this particular chapter, we are seeing how Maharaja Raghugana was still having some doubts. Already some enlightenment has happened for him. He has understood some few things. He has understood that the person who is carrying the palanquin, that is Jadabharata, is not an ordinary soul or is not an ordinary person. So, and he realizes that he is a elevated soul. And so, and also he realizes that he has made a mistake. What is the mistake that he has made? He ended up engaging this person to carry his palanquin, which is a great aparat to an elevated soul like Jadabharata. And he also realizes that he has wantonly concealed his position. So there is repentance that is happening from Maharaj Rahugana. And then he is also surrendering himself to Jadabharata. Earlier it was not the case. So he was like with lot of ego, he was chastising Jadabharata and all. And then when he replied, then he realizes the actual position, and then there is repentance, and also there is some amount of surrender at this point. And then he goes on and then he asks questions because he is not understood fully. So whatever Jadabharata was talking about in the earlier chapters, he has not understood. He has got some doubts, some questions. So we can see the aspects of Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya coming in here. So there is repentance for the offense that he committed to him. And also there is surrender. Some amount of surrender is that he gets down from the palanquin and then he realizes and then he offers obeisances and then he puts forward these questions. And after these questions are put forward, where he says that I'm not able to understand fully. So now Jadabharata is actually explaining the things once again. So that's the context for the discussion that is happening. So now it is a little confusing for him because he is talking about fatigue, because he says like, you must be very tired. He was very sarcastic, if you recall. Who? The king. He was telling, you must be very fatigued because you've been carrying for a long time. You must have become tired. Your body is so thin. So all these bodily comments are being made. And then Jadabharata is taking this opportunity or he's taking the thread from there, and then he is explaining how that this fatigue that is resulting from the moving of the body, or the body itself, or the activity of carrying the palanquin, or you thinking, that is you, King Rahuguna, thinking that you are a king and then sitting on top, all of this is an illusion. And so naturally he gets a little confused. And then he says, wait, I'm not able to understand what you're saying. How do you say this is an illusion? Because I know I'm here and I know you're there. So how can this be like that? So this is a confusion that all of us have. And then by these instructions, Jadavarata is explaining what is actually an illusion and what is not. So if you look at the 10th verse, which was covered yesterday, so there again, what is happening? There is a conclusion that is happening for all the discussion that he has said. So here it says that the universe has no real ultimate existence, or whatever, all the things that are within the universe. So we know that the universe is created by the Lord, through Brahmadev, Lord Brahma, but then it doesn't have any real ultimate existence. It is false. And all the things that are within it, the shortness, the differences in the various hierarchy, the positions, the grossness of it, and then the smallness, the bigness, any of these things, so it doesn't, all of this doesn't exist at all. They are all imagined. And then he gives a analogy of how the parts are made of the same substance, which is earth. So likewise, all the living entities are made of the same substance, earth, but they are named differently. So some entities are called as frogs, some are animals, some are humans, some are four-legged, etc., etc. So we know all these differentiations that are there. So the differences are characterized by the substance, the nature, the predisposition, time, and activity. So we should know that these are simply mechanical manifestations. So mechanical manifestation, the bodies that we have are all that. And then he says, if all of this is untruth, then what is the ultimate truth? And that is how then we come to this particular verse, where the translation goes, what then is the ultimate truth? So now there are three aspects that we are going to look at. One is, we saw already what is untruth or asat or temporariness. So sometimes when we say it is false, then we think we are put in a doubt. I know I'm here. I see the things around me. How do we say it is false? And then people try to, Mayavadis or the others try to confuse it even more by saying it's like a dream. You wake up from a dream, you realize that it doesn't exist, and so on and so forth. So Prabhupada actually, or our Guru Parampara, so wonderfully reconciles this particular ambiguity and then tells that how false means it is not permanent, it is temporary, which means that it exists for some time and then it gets annihilated. So bhutva praliyate. So we know that the universe is created in a way that it comes forth, stays for some time, then again it gets annihilated, and then that keeps on happening like a cycle. So that is why the temporary aspect has to be understood, or it has to be grasped by us in all its entirety, and not continue to remain in this illusion that whatever I see around is for real. So it is real, but it is not the ultimate real. So it is temporary. So it is not permanent. So that is why the word, when we say asat, then we should know that it is temporary, and sat is permanent. So that is this prayer that we say, right? Asatoma sat gamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityurmam amrutam gamaya. So I am in asat, I am in temporariness, I am in this material world. Take me to sat, take me to the place of permanence. And mrityurmam, I am in death. Death is also in the same category of asat, because it is temporary. So we stay for some time and then there is death. So there's this change that is happening. So from there you take me to what's that? Amrutam Gamaya. Amrutam is eternity. So in this way, this is aligning what Bharat Maharaj, Jada Bharat is saying, is aligning with respect to the temporary aspect. And Prabhupada so nicely has put this thing about how we should understand false, not as false as in not being there, but then the temporary aspect is being brought out here. Now, if we are looking at this particular verse, which is verse 11, there it talks about the ultimate truth. Now, what is this ultimate truth then? The answer is that the ultimate truth is non-dual knowledge. Now, little more confusion. So as it is a little difficult for us to understand. And now there is this aspect of duality and non-duality that is being introduced here. So, yeah, we have some understanding of what is non-dual, and then we should know what is dual. So then we will have a better understanding of what is non-dual. Now, this is devoid of the contamination of material qualities. So the ultimate truth is being introduced in the way, under the first aspect is it is non-dual. That means it is different from dual, or it is different from the world that we observe, or the material world that we see as we are seeing or as we are perceiving it. It is different from that. So that's the first level of understanding. And then what is the next one? Then I'll also need to know what is dual then. Dual means then two. That means there are two opposites. So like contrasting things. So the material world is characterized by duality. That means there are always opposites that exist. What are the examples that we can look at for this? The concepts like duality with respect to mine and yours, or me and others. So there is this duality that is there in our existence. It has been deeply ingrained. So sometimes we don't even realize it. But then we will have to take a moment to understand this, because there is always duality in this material world. The duality starts from me, myself, and people connected with me, which is the family, the extended family, or however, the boundaries can vary, but then the duality exists. Even in the greatest philanthropist or a greatest of personalities who are so selfless in their dealings, they also have duality. What is that? It is just that the line that they have drawn for themselves is a little extended. That means it is not just limited to themselves, or limited to their immediate family members, or it is not limited to just the place where they are born or the country they belong to. So mostly it stops somewhere there. So to that extent, then they come across as somebody who's so selfless. But actually, the duality exists for everybody in the material world. It's just that the extent is little bit more for some people, and for some it is very, very narrow or short. The narrowest is just me, myself, and nothing else matters other than me. So that's it starts from there. Then see all the others as different. So this is one duality. Then you see some of them as your friends and some of them as your enemies. So somebody who aligns to your thinking, who helps you get what you want and all, becomes your friend. The others are all there is animosity, or they are not, they are detractors, they are enemies for us. So there's another duality. So like this, we can know that there is so much of duality in this material world. Of course, at the gross level, there is day, night, darkness, light. So in whichever way you look at it, there is duality. Now, if you look at non-dual, then non-dual is the ekatvam that we need to understand. So that is the truth. And the truth, again, if you look at the purport, like I said before, Prabhupada actually, without the purports of Prabhupada, we will never be able to grasp the translations of the wonderful verses that are there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So there Prabhupada brings out the aspect of how the truth is existing in three forms. And then he says that all the three forms are actually, when we look at all the three and we take it all together, then that is the complete understanding of the truth. So just one aspect of the three that is there is understood, then it is partial understanding. So now what are the three aspects that you all know? That is Brahman, then Paramatma, and then Bhagavan. So Brahman is the effulgence that is coming out from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Paramatma is the localized feature of that, or an expansion, which is the localized feature, which means that expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's sitting in all our hearts, is Paramatma. So that is the next truth. And then the next level of truth is the personality of Godhead himself, or the Bhagavan feature. So now all the three has to be looked at collectively. Now, Prabhupada gives wonderful analogies, if you will recall. He gives an example of the sun globe, the sun disk, and then the sun rays. And now if that is a little confusing, then he also gives another material example of the train. So there is that small child who doesn't know what is a train, and then he's walking with his father in the night, and then there is a light that they see, a huge light that is coming. And then the child is intrigued, and then he says, "Father, what is that? What is that?" And then there's bright light, and then it is moving and it is coming towards them. So obviously they are standing a little away from this thing. So now the father says, "That's a train." So the child accepts it, and he says, "Okay, that's the train." Then they wait there for some time. Then after a minute or so, then the light becomes brighter, and then there's this whole train, the long body that moves one after another, thundering across on the railway track. And then he says, what is this then? Then the father says, "This is also the train. It's the same train. When you saw it as a light then, and now you're seeing the whole object, of the train." And then, okay, then the night is over, and then the next day morning, then the father takes this particular child to the railway station. And there they see so many trains standing, and then the father takes him inside, and then he sees people there, and then there are so many activities happening. There is a pantry, people are all gossiping, there's somebody studying, somebody singing, all these activities are happening. And he says, "What is this?" He says, "This is also a train." So now there are three levels of understanding of the train. One was just the light, and then the body when you see it from far, and then when actually you go in there, then you have another level of understanding. So in this way, the Bhagavan feature has to be understood, or the Tattva has to be understood in its three features, which is the Brahman, and then the Paramatma, and then the Bhagavan feature. So then the complete understanding is there. Like now, just contrast that with, or rather, the analogy of the train. No, just the understanding of the light as the train is not complete, or just seeing that long train thundering across from a distance is also not the complete understanding, though both are trains again. But then going in then and seeing, so all the three levels then makes it up for the complete understanding of the train. So in this way, in this particular shloka, we see how Prabhupada is bringing out the aspect of the tattva, which has to be understood at three levels. And we know the shlokas which support that, which is in the Bhagavatam again, 1.2.11, which is Vadanti Tattvadas, Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam, Brahmeti Paramatmiti, Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. So this reconciliation will help us to grasp the truth in a little more better way without getting confused. Because most of the time, the entire differences that are existing is because of the improper understanding of the Bhagavan, or the tattva, or the truth. So this aspect is being highlighted in this particular verse. Now, if we look at these verses that we just quoted, so there's another verse that is coming up here, which is Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Now, coming to this aspect that everything is aligning to Vasudev, or Vasudev is the Sarva Karana Karanam. That takes many births. That takes a lot of understanding for us. Now, these are two aspects that we know. Now, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sadurlabhaha, which is in Bhagavad Gita, and then Bhagavatam Vadanti Tat Tattvavidas. Now, what are these, or what are all the shlokas that are there in Srimad Bhagavatam, or even in Bhagavad Gita? These are actually revealed knowledge, because it has been revealed to someone else, and then we are just hearing it. So we are actually listening to revealed knowledge. But then, even though it is revealed knowledge, it doesn't touch our heart, or there is no transformation that is happening. Because if we know that among the knowledge which is gained by pratyaksha is at one level, and then which is just a regular FYI kind of a thing, which is there, which is not complete. Then we know that then realization happens. And then we also know that the highest knowledge is the revealed knowledge. Now, we have the revealed knowledge in front of us, but still nothing happening. There is no transformation. Then if there is no transformation, then where is this gap? And this particular gap is in the process of how it is assimilated within us. Even though it is a revealed knowledge, it is not got assimilated into us. So realization of the revealed knowledge becomes very important. Now, now this revealed knowledge, how do we know this is revealed knowledge? Because it was revealed to Vyasadeva. If you recall how, what was the situation which prompted Vyasadeva to write Srimad Bhagavatam, we know that. So where he sat and then under the, after instructions from Narada Muni, he sat on the banks of the river, meditated, and then in his meditation, there was a revelation that happened. So he could see all the pastimes that was happening. And then he went on recording it. I mean, he realized it. He saw it and then he realized, and then he brought forth the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is actually revealed knowledge. Now, revealed knowledge has to be assimilated. And now the process of assimilation, we are in various stages. So for us, what? Seeing is believing. We are in that stage of pratyaksha praman. So if I see, I mean, I should be able to perceive with my senses, then I will accept it. So in that stage, there is a huge gap because there are other stages in between which we will try to look at. So what are those stages? Then there is from pratyaksha, then the next higher stage is paroksha, then aparoksha, and then adhokshaja, and then prakata. Now, prakata stage is the stage of revelation, but we are in the pratyaksha. We are receiving it as pratyaksha, so we are not able to. There is a gap that exists, so we are not able to. There is no transformation that is happening. You know, it's not bringing about that particular change that it is supposed to bring in. So now pratyaksha, then we want logic, we want reason. So that's why all these purports, everything is there, so many lectures, and we have to hear it again and again and again. Now we slowly realize that I cannot perceive or understand it on my own. I need somebody who will guide me. So paroksha jnana, that means you depend on another person. You don't depend on your own senses. Paroksha means not depending on the senses. That means hearing from another person. That other person is the pure devotee of the Lord, or the spiritual master, or the people who are connected to the parampara. So when we hear from them, we align and then we hear from them, then there is some amount of appreciation for that knowledge that is coming in. Then we realize, oh, is that so? Oh, so wonderful. So we begin to appreciate. And then we get kind of, immersed in this particular view that is developing in our hearts or in our minds. Then what happens is, even without the help of that other individual, we will be able to conclude, because we realize that the conclusion is like this only. So this is aparoksha. It doesn't mean that we don't need the spiritual master. It just means that we are so well aligned that we are able to understand the mind of the acharya or the mind of the master to some extent. It's not to the full extent, to some extent. So we realize, okay, now this is what he is trying to say. And then we try to build on that. And so that's aparoksha jnana. Now, paroksha and aparoksha, pratyaksha, all of this keeps happening. And then it happens for a very, very long time. And then we come to the stage of adhokshaja. Now, what is adhokshaja? Adhokshaja is the conclusion that I will not be able to understand everything because, see, I'm using my material senses up to the mind, intelligence, all of it. We know it's all material. So logic, reasoning, whatever you call it, all of that together. I will not be able to grasp the tattva because tattva is beyond all of this. Tattva is adhokshaja, the personality who cannot be understood by the material senses. So now we move upward. And then once we understand this thoroughly, then prakata or revelation happens. So now where is the proof for this? In the Shastras, we know that Lord Brahma, how he meditated, he came into existence, he was wondering, where am I and all that. So if you recall that particular story of Lord Brahma and how the creation happened, there, before starting anything, he wants to know, why am I here, who am I and all that. And then he sits and then he meditates, and then he wants to understand who's the Lord. So after sitting and meditating for 100 celestial years, then Lord Brahma understood, it says. Then Prabhupada writes there, what did he understand? He understood that the supreme truth cannot be understood. So this is the final surrender that happens. That is the adhokshaja stage. Up to that point, there is no surrender. Our complete surrender is not there. So now adhokshaja stage, and we realize that on my own I cannot do, because the facilities that are given to me, it is not adequate to understand the Supreme Lord. So I will just hear or accept what is being revealed. So that's when then the revelations have a more better impact, or it helps us to further advance, or the transformation happens, or the change happens at that level. When we realize that adhokshaja stage, then from there, then whatever is the prakata, then we are able to appreciate it much more better. So because of this gap that is there, we are not able to realize. Now, this gap can be bridged only with one particular thing. What is that? All along we thought it is our effort. No, it is not our effort. Effort is needed, but then what is that one thing? Bhagavata is revealing it in the very next shloka itself. In the 12th verse, he is saying, what does he say? He says that only by smearing oneself with the dust of the lotus feet of pure devotees or devotees of the Lord, then only the tattva will be revealed to us, or we will be able to get to that complete, grasp that whole thing in its proper way, only by the mercy of the devotees. So we will have to roll in the, or smear ourselves in the dust of the lotus feet. Now, what does this actually indicate? Smear or roll on the dust of the lotus feet. It is talking about subordination. Now, why subordination is very important, so I'll try to cover that. Actually, I was listening to the lecture from Gauranga Prabhu. He was talking in this particular verse, the 12th verse, he was talking about the purificatory process. Now, the purificatory process, he took reference to various purificatory processes that are there. Now, for example, now I'm just repeating what he said. He says that in the 10th canto, there is a particular shloka which talks about the various purificatory processes that are there. He did not mention the name, so maybe we'll try to find it out later. I couldn't. But he says that if we have to purify our body, then we do snan, or we wash it, we bathe. Now, that's the purification process for cleansing the body. Now, if outside things like stone or any of the nature, anything has to be cleaned or purified, then it is by kala or time. With time, there is the effect of time is that it purifies. This is what he was saying. Now, he goes on and gives many examples. Now, he says, if we have to purify dirty things like vessels, pots and all, then it is by sauchabhyam. That means by cleaning, by washing. So we clean and then it becomes purified. Now, if birth has to be purified, how do we do that? It is by samskaras. Then if our senses have to be purified, how do we go about doing that? It is by austerity. By performing austerity, the senses become purified. Then if whatever I possess, it is all contaminated. If I have to purify that, then the purification is by giving, by charity. So now the great examples we have. If whatever money we have, it has to be purified, it has to be given. And that is what our Parampara also has very clearly said, where we will have to give something in charity and then keep the rest so that the money becomes purified. So we've heard this. Flower is impure. If it has to be purified, you offer it to the Lord, then it becomes purified. So like that. Now, possessions that we have can be purified by giving in charity. Then the mind, if it has to be purified, how is the mind purified? It is purified by satisfaction. Once the mind becomes satisfied, then the mind becomes purified. Think about it. I mean, so much sense it makes. And then if the soul or Atma has to be purified, It is purified by self-realization. That means realizing who I am and realizing I am part and parcel of the Lord, realizing that there is a relationship between the two, between me and the Lord, all of that. So this is self-realization. So purifying the consciousness means to go through the process of self-realization. Now we are talking about the purification of consciousness at the soul level. So now this is brought about by self-realization. And this purification also means to bathe. So we have to bathe in the dust of the feet of the devotees. Then there is purification that happens. Now, how is that two related? If you look at this particular verse, the 12th verse, it says, Mahat Pada Rajo Abhishekam. So, Mahat Pada Rajo Abhishekam means what? Mahat is a great soul, a devotee. Pada Rajo, that means the dust of the feet of the great soul. Abhishekam, bathing in that. So, and Vina Mahat Pada Rajo Abhishekam means this does not happen if one doesn't bathe in the dust of the lotus feet of the devotee or smears oneself all over one's own body, the dust of the lotus feet. Now, this also is an analogy, though physically, yes, we need to do that because sometimes by doing it physically, our mind or we are able to align ourselves in that way. So now what is this particular analogy that is referring to in bathing or in smearing oneself in the dust? We are talking about surrendering, about humility, about Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarodapi Sahishnuna. So if you recall, even in the pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they go and then they go in a very humble way with a blade of grass in their mouth. And you know that particular thing we have heard, where they approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in that way. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes very pleased in the way they have approached. And then they say that people say I'm learned, but I don't know who I am. People say I am a very learned Pandit and all of that, but I myself, I don't know who I am. So how can I be a learned person? People are saying that, but then I don't know anything. So that's humility. And then they surrender. And then once the surrender happens, then you know how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy went to them. And then, they were instructed on many ways, things, and then they were given a certain task to do and all of that. So in this way, the surrender aspect is being highlighted here. Now, surrendering to the devotee, it doesn't take much time for us to realize that surrendering to Krishna or to the Supreme Lord is the same as surrendering to his devotee, or it is the same as surrendering to the parampara that is which is there coming all the way from Krishna, and surrendering to the spiritual master who is our immediate connection to Krishna. So now all of that we understand that they are all the same. So now whether you surrender to Krishna, but then we also know that Krishna has very emphatically said that surrender to the devotee of Krishna, it pleases Krishna more than directly serving or surrendering to Krishna himself. So in this way, the aspect of surrender becomes very, very important for our own advancement. And our movement is all about surrender, about right from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where it says, Dasa, Dasa, Dasanu, Dasa. If you recall that entire verse, and I'm just telling the last, which talks about I am not this, I am not that, but I am just a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. So this way, the humility aspect is being highlighted here. And that, without that, Vina Mahat Pada Rajo Abhishekam, we will not get to the absolute truth. We will not get to the realization of absolute truth. Even though it is revealed knowledge, it is available right in front of us, the transformation will not happen for us because it will just remain as information. That's all. Revealed knowledge is there, but it just remains as information unless we put our effort to understand. And putting the effort to understand is surrendering to the parampara or tadvidi pranipatena. So all of that. So when we are able to do that, then the revelation comes to us. Now, when we are talking about realization or advancement is happening, we realize that it is because of the mercy of the spiritual master or the parampara or Krishna. So, however you want to take it, because all the three are in one line. So now we need the mercy, we understand, and to attract this mercy, then we need to surrender. So now sometimes, people misunderstand this word mercy, and then they'll say, see, there are two aspects now. One is my own effort, the other one is mercy. So I wait for things to happen, and then I go ahead and then achieve or do something. So now this is another paradox that comes up. So like all the sadhanas that we do, it is all my own effort to further my position, to advance. So we realize that. But then we are doing it under the instruction of the spiritual master. So there is surrender also. There is simultaneously surrender as well as effort being put. But then in the outside world, we might come across people who will say, okay, Krishna's mercy is there, then I will advance. So they would have said, so if I have to come into devotional service, then Krishna's mercy, when it comes, it will happen. So that is not right. And then I'll just wait for it. So that is just like giving an excuse to not do what one is supposed to do. So then if we take to this other end where my own effort is very important, so I'll do all my effort, I will endeavor, I will try to understand, I will do this, I, that also is not going to take us to the end goal. So now there are two contrasts there. So now these two contrasts we can understand with the two types of nyayas that is there, which I think is I mean, we if we can understand that a little bit. So there are those two types of nyayas. Some of you are aware of it. One is the Marakata Nyaya, and the other one is Marjala Nyaya. What is Marakata Nyaya? That is the monkey child, that philosophy or the Nyaya. So logic, that is not philosophy, logic. So now what is that logic? We have seen how a monkey or a baby monkey catches on to the mother. It is completely the endeavor or the effort of that baby monkey to cling on. And then the mother is protecting and then taking the monkey everywhere. But there is no effort from the mother monkey. It is the baby monkey has to cling on. So this is analogous to this aspect where one thinks that they'll have to put in their effort and then continue to do the sadhana, and only by their effort then they will be able to progress. That's the nyaya that is there. And Marjala is a complete opposite. That is, Marjala is the kitten or a cat. So what does a kitten do? It doesn't even lift a finger or nothing. It just is there, completely surrendered, even with the eyes closed. It doesn't even know where it is going. And then the mother cat picks it up and then takes it wherever it has to be taken and then puts it there. So complete surrender aspect is there. So now, which is better? So somebody might say effort is needed, so we'll have to do that. Somebody will say, no, complete surrender. We've heard, we've seen so many places, surrender is needed, then mercy will happen. And then based on that mercy of the mother cat, then it gets moved to safety. So I'll wait for that. Now, both of this has to be reconciled. So now Prabhupada and then in our movement, it's gone wonderfully, it has been reconciled, where as practicing Vaishnavas, we understand that both are needed. And to understand this better, the example that is given is how neither just Marakata or Marjala in its entirety or independently is the way forward, but the way forward is rope in a well concept. Now, rope in a well concept is where our effort is needed and the mercy is also needed. So now let us imagine that you are in a well deep down and you need to come out, you need help. So now the help comes by way of a rope that is dangled. But unless we cling on to that rope and hold ourselves there, so our effort is there in this, and then wait for the mercy so that we get pulled up. So the mercy is also acting, and then our effort is also there. So this rope in a well, nyaya or the philosophy is how we Vaishnavas look at this whole thing. So our sadhana is also important, and at the same time we depend on the mercy so that we will be able to advance. So these are some of the points that I just wanted to talk with respect to the verses that we saw here. It's already 8:05. So I'll conclude by saying that we saw three things. One is what is untruth, which is the material world, which was explained in all the verses. And then we saw what is truth in 11th verse, which is and the wholesomeness of the truth, which is Vadanti Tat Tattva Vidas. So, and Brahman, Paramatma, and then Bhagavan. So, and then we also are being told how to realize it. The only way that we can realize it is by smearing ourselves with the dust of the lotus feet of a devotee or surrendering to the devotee. Now, when we surrender, what happens? When we surrender, then the false ego gets purified. So, when we bathe in the dust of the lotus feet of devotees, then the purification of false ego happens. So, false ego goes away. Me, myself, aham. We saw that in this story also, where King Rahugana, he had so much of ego, false ego. So when he came down and then surrendered, and then he paid obeisances and there was repentance, then even though the same thing was repeated by Bharat Maharaj, he was able to understand this better. So in this example itself, we can see how with surrender, his realization changed. Earlier, when he spoke, Jadavarat spoke, he was not surrendered. He was still sitting in the palanquin and all that. So but he got some traces of something important is being told. So then he put his effort. He came down, and then there was repentance. Then he surrendered. So he actually, in a humble way, that Tadvidi Pranipatena is happening. And so more realization is coming. Then as we go further, I'm sure finally he pays obeisances to Jadavarat, completely surrenders. And in fact, he doesn't even go to that ashram where he was supposed to go, because he says, I've already got what I want to get from you, so there's no need for me to go there. So to that extent, he surrenders, and then he is able to make his life more successful. So this is how the aspect of surrender can be seen everywhere. It's just that we need to realize and understand that. I'll stop here. If there are any comments or questions, please go ahead. Thank you so much for the opportunity. These were very wonderful verses. Yeah, I just tried to do some justice based on what I heard. In case if I have said something which is not correct, or it has hurt somebody, kindly forgive me. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Over to you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Really, like as you said, it is very uh, nice verses to realize ourselves, like the last chapter and this chapter, and the way like you have took the flow. So like setting the context, and then you talked about the falseness, and then you talked about the absoluteness, and then also you mentioned about how absolute truth exists in three forms, and what three forms absolute truth exists. Then to understand that Vasudeva Saramiti, it takes millions of births, and then you talked about how the Vyasdeva got revealed knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam, and whatever Srimad Bhagavatam is the revealed knowledge. Then you mentioned about there are three different levels of assimilation of that revealed knowledge, like starting from Pratyaksha, Paroksha, Aporoksha, Dakshaja, and all these different levels. Then a very nice point you mentioned is like Brahma, after doing the 100 celestial years of meditation, he understood that he cannot understand. So very nicely like you mentioned, that is the Adakshaja. Then how can this Adaksha gap can be filled? So that is only by smearing the dust of lotus feet of the devotees. And then you mentioned about different types of purification process, like physical body or outside things or visuals. And then at the seventh and eighth, where you mentioned the mind is purified by satisfaction and the soul is purified by self knowledge. Then we talked about the last one, consciousness. It is the consciousness gets purified by the process of self realization. And then you talked about what is the actual meaning of the smearing the dust of lotus feet of devotees. It means that we have to surrender. You have given the example of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, how surrendering with humility, how they surrendered to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then surrendering here, like devotees, Guru, and Krishna, and Krishna gets pleased more when we surrender to his devotees. Like then you talked about the three, I mean, two different surrenders. Like one is Markata way of doing, and other one is Marjala. Then at the end, you said the very nice example. It's not both for us. It is la rope in a well. So it is the mercy of the Guru and the Vaishnavas, but we have to stick, or we have to hold the rope so that we come out of the well, or come out of this metal, go out of the metal world. Very nicely, like you have given very nice flow, bro. Thank you so much. And like at least like it made so much clarity for me, especially the surrenderness and also the different ways of assimilation of the knowledge. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you so much.
Devotees lines are already unmuted, and you can unmute and ask any questions or clarification.
Prabhu, wonderful class, Prabhu. And actually, duality, non-duality, my knowledge is so different, and so nicely explained about non-duality, where the contamination. But I wanted to ask you about this. Can you give one example? You said the material world is full of dual things. Can you give one example there? And then, little bit, can you explain about aparoksha and adokshaja, Prabhu? These things were clear. And very nicely you told about the purification process. And the best was the example which you told about the rope in a well. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Can these three things, can you tell us once more?
See, Mataji, the basic examples of just in the context I'm saying, duality is with respect to dual and non-dual is, we have duality. So duality is because of false ego, because of me identifying myself with the body, and the rest are all the others. So then me and then the others. So mine and then them. So my family and then others. So like that, the duality is the basic nature of this material existence for everybody. You take a cat, you take a dog, they guard their territories, or you take even nations, they draw boundaries. Prabhupada gives all these examples. So all these examples are aligning to the aspect of duality which is there with us, which is me and then the others. My language, my mother tongue, outsider. I mean, in whichever way you look at it, there is always this duality. Friend, enemy, that also is duality, because he aligns to me what I need, and then if he is not, then he becomes my enemy, my well-wisher, and then my whatever, So it's like that. Whereas in the spirituality, it is not like that. It is about raising above this dual concept. It is about how Prabhupada went and then gave this knowledge freely to everybody. He didn't distinguish between America, Africa, India, and all that. He included everyone. He was all inclusive. So that duality aspect is completely wiped out there. So in this way, we can understand how spiritual means then there is no duality. So that is why all these places became, what do you call that? Embassies of Vaikuntha, of the spiritual world, the temples that Prabhupada created. So this is, I'm just repeating that example that I gave. And Paroksha and Adokshaja means, see, Mataji, Pratyaksha is my own endeavor. Using my senses, I try to understand. Then I realize I can't. It is like reading a book. Let us say, even science also you read something with the book, you don't understand. You go to another person and then that person will explain. So you keep aside your mind logic thinking and then hear from that other person. That is that Paroksha Jnana. So he is telling and then you understood. And then you build on it. That is Aparoksha. Even when he is not there, you try to build on what you heard and then you try to take it forward. But aligning to what he said, it is not opposite. So sometimes people say Paroksha and Aparoksha are opposites. No, it is actually alignment of Paroksha within yourself, which is Aparoksha. But all this is my own endeavor. It is all happening in my mind. Then you come to the stage of Adokshaja. Adokshaja means what? I realize that how much ever effort, whatever I do, I will not be able to understand completely with my limited senses, with my logic, with how is this? We keep on asking, right? So we can ask, of course, we need to ask, but then we ask till the point where we realize that it is not it. That is why it is achintya. It is beyond our imagination. We can't comprehend. So adhokshaja. So the Lord is adhokshaja. And then whatever little understanding I've got of the Lord or whatever further I'm going to get, it is revealed knowledge, or it is prakata, or it is manifesting in front of me. That's the highest stage, which is complete surrender is there, then it will go to that. Otherwise, to that degree of surrender, then little bit of such revelations happen to all of us, which we should take it as the mercy of the Lord, mercy of the Parampara, mercy of the Guru, and not because of my effort. That's the whole point. I hope that clarifies a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for the wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat pranams. Thanks for the wonderful class, Prabhu. You said Paroksha. Is there any Aprakata also, Prabhu, before Paroksha?
Aprakata is not manifest, no. So that means that Prakata is manifest, Aprakata is not manifest. So it is aprakata. The Supreme Lord is aprakata, but he will manifest to us. That means he will reveal to us, or he will show himself. Then he becomes prakata. That's all. Till all this point, it is aprakata only. Pratyaksha, paroksha, and all. Little we might see. It is like that fog. No, some form you can see. Still clarity is not there. But the fog, when it lifts completely up, then there is full clarity. And that full clarity phase we are saying is prakata.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranams. Thank you very much for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Prabhu, Adokshaja also means one who cannot be seen with material eyes, no, Prabhu?
Exactly.
Today I learned the new meaning. Wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
It's the same meaning, Mataji, just that extended meaning. That's all. That is how our acharyas have explained it.
We cannot see him, we cannot understand him.
Yes.
Or the knowledge given by him.
Yes,
No,
we
Prabhu?
cannot understand with our senses. That personality who cannot be understood by our senses or our mind, intelligence, all of that is the Lord.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Wonderful.
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can we take this paroksha, aparoksha, and adokshaja as Brahman realization, Paramatma, and Bhagavan realization?
No, Mataji. The whole realizations of those three are different. This is the stages that we go through. Even to realize Brahman, we will go through these stages, or to realize Paramatma, we'll go through these stages, or to realize Bhagavan, we'll have to go through these stages.
Okay, Prabhuji.
These are the stages. This is not equivalent to that. It's not like that. But all the three together has to be understood. Then only it is full realization or the complete tattva.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
Wonderful session.
The adokshaja means, another meaning is it's absolute truth, no, Prabhu. We call Supreme Person.
It's other name for the Lord. But the meaning of that word adokshaja is what we just discussed. The Lord is known by his qualities. So that personality who cannot be understood by the senses is adokshaja. And it can only refer to the Lord. That's all.
But what I heard from someone, no, Prabhu, adokshaja, A and Sha is the letters, beginning and ending. He is the one who knows everything. That's what they told Prabhu. Adokshaja. Is that right, Prabhu? I don't know.
I don't know. I have not heard that, Mataji, but that's a play of the words, splitting it and then trying to, as long as it's aligning to the truth, what we just discussed, then you can accept it.
So one cannot be seen or understood by our own senses.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This rope in the well, we can relate to Damodara Lila also, no, Prabhu? Like the mercy and the effort.
Our effort and mercy. Very nice analogy, Mataji. Wonderful. I missed that. So very nicely you brought that out. The 2-finger shot. Damodar month is coming up now shortly. So 2-finger shot. One is our effort. The other one is the mercy of the Lord. So very nice. Very wonderful. Thank you so much, Mataji. That also we can take that as a thing. So both are needed to tie Krishna to
Thank you.
Yeah, to tie Krishna. Yes.
I think now all devotees are very much clear, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, once again for the wonderful class. Thanks all devotees for being attentive and very nice questions. We can end the class here with Vaishnava Pranam. Vancha Kalpatarubhesh.
Kripa Sindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thanks all devotees.
Thank you for the opportunity.